Welcome back to the channel. You see the information on the screen, so you know what I'm already about. So let's get into it. So a friend sent me this and wanted to know what I thought about it, especially because this happened in Atlanta. And it's crazy stuff always in Atlanta. And I've actually been to this mall a couple of times. It's not my default mall, but I have been there a couple of times, so I know exactly where that is. And so it's kind of funny, sitting there and looking at that. And I'm gonna read a couple of the comments, and then I'll get into it. So one of the ones says, and this is kind of sad, but person says she needed to experience this humiliation so she will never forget. The another one says, in the food court, ma'am, get up. Then another one says, this is why we all need one real friend who will check us before we embarrass ourselves. Another one says, proposing to this dude in the middle of Cumberland Mall food court was her first mistake. All right, so many of you might have heard of a show. I think it came out about 3 or 4 years ago, and it was called Marry Me Now. If I can find a poster or whatever, I'll throw it up. I think you can watch older versions of it, or the first season, because I think they only had one season. And I believe you can watch it on Hulu. I'm not sure, because I know it's not on Netflix, and I know I've seen it. So I believe it's on Hulu. And it'll be a good experience for a lot of people. It's only about 8 episodes. But in that particular show, they followed about I think it was 7 heterosexual couples, and only one of the couples had a family beforehand. So it was like a woman living with a man, and they had a couple of kids, but they had never technically been married. So everybody else was just kind of like a girlfriend and a boyfriend type of situation where they had been hanging out for about, I guess, at least 2 years or more. And, I'm going to give you a little bit of a spoiler. I mean, if you continue to watch this video, you're definitely going to get a little bit of spoilers, because evidently I'm using that as an example. But I'm just trying to give you some time if you want to cut the video right now. So what the show did was it would have the woman pick out her wedding dress, and then they would find a small venue where they would set up, a wedding, like a little small wedding. And they would invite friends and family, not too big, maybe about 50 to 75 people. And then they would do this big reveal where the woman would show up in the wedding dress, and they would have the man kind of in a certain place or whatever. And then they would have, her to ask him to marry her. And she was making her ultimatum that if he didn't marry her, then, she was going to walk, and different things like that. And in every scenario, almost every scenario, I should say, the man walked away. The man found it to be 100% disrespectful. He found it to be something that he didn't feel comfortable with. It felt wrong. And so he was out. And in many cases, not all, but in many cases, the relationship literally was over at that point. And it was interesting because the woman is really coming in with her ultimatum, but it was really the man that left. And I think we can learn a lot from this in a lot of different, avenues. And it's interesting because, like I said, someone sent me this and, wanted to know how I felt about it. But right before this, I mean, maybe 4 or 5 videos ago, I was talking about how people keep thinking that the world has changed. Right. I think I was talking about interracial relationships, and people continue to think that the world has changed, but the world really hasn't changed that much. It takes, well over 75 years for things really to change. And generally speaking, you might as well even say 150 years for it to fully clear its way through. Do I believe that one day, and even to a degree now, you will have women that will propose, and will they be successful with it? And I probably would say some women will be successful with it, but I would say it's probably going to be, one in so many hundreds of thousands, I think it's going to be extremely rare, so rare, I would never encourage any woman to do it. there's certain things about gender roles, and everything I'm saying in this, particular video evidently is not in the Bible. None of this stuff is in the Bible. In fact, if you really go and study the Bible, most of the relationships in the Bible were like, arranged marriage or some other kind of situation a little bit along that lines. It wasn't the courtship that we do today, which is one of the reasons why I think we have so many problems today, is because we court and we do things so differently, than how they did it literally thousands of years ago. But when it comes to gender roles, and I think that's one of the issues that's going on in our society, is that gender roles, there's certain lines that people are not ready for other genders to cross. Does this make sense? And so we have, a thing where we're now, women are working in the workplace, okay? And 100 years ago, women did not work in the workplace. They had their own workplace type jobs. But you would not have a woman, for instance, managing a man in a manufacturing environment where they're creating some kind of widget, or maybe they're making furniture or something like that. They would have considered the furniture to be a man's job, and there would have been a male manager over him. Now you will have a female manager over a man in a job, such as, creating furniture, right? And so we've accepted that. But even when it comes to like first dates, a lot of men are making the pushback because women these days are making decent amount of money, and generally speaking, making around 95% or so of what a man makes. Okay. And when we say this, I know it depends upon your perspective, because there'll be women out there that are saying, hey, women are outdoing men and blah, blah, blah. But again, a lot of that is hearsay and it's not really true. I'll try to throw up a few charts. Black men in almost every single category do better than black women financially. However, black women are on the rise. And if you really look at a lot of the articles that talk about this, they're just talking about the rise. And it makes it seem as though black women are doing better. But generally speaking, black men are making a little bit more in almost every level than black women. But again, that's a whole nother story. I've talked about that in other videos. But the point is, there are men out here that are basically saying, well, if you make $70,000 a year and I make about $70,000 a year, why do I have to pay for the first date? And again, there's women that are basically pushing back saying, hey, that doesn't make me feel good. Because it's something about a man coming in and providing that women still like. Even if the woman makes more money, like I've, let you all know before, I've dated a couple of women that I know for a fact made over $250,000 a year. I probably dated at least 5 of them that I know, and it might have been more, but I just might not have known. But I know for a fact at least 5 of them. And in those situations, I still paid for the first date, and it made them feel a lot more comfortable. Now, those women, like I said, made a good amount of money and everything. They easily could have gone 50-50 with me, or they could have honestly paid for the date and not sat there. But again, it's something about that traditional role that makes everybody a little bit more comfortable. And I do think that we have to watch how we handle traditional roles and especially how we deal with money. Because remember, when it comes to the Bible, the number one thing that God says is in competition with him is actually money. And when we start to talk about lining up, like what comes first, second, third, fourth, fifth in our life, money generally comes number 1 or number 2. And that is totally outside of God's order. In fact, one of the main things that happens with a lot of successful women, and I've talked about this in some videos in the past, especially uber successful women, those women making $250,000 or more, is not that they can't get men. Many of these women are extremely attractive. The problem is that they put their money over the man. And they don't recognize that when they get married, they no longer make all this money anymore, because that money goes to the family. And if they don't think that way, they're outside of God's order. They're outside of any family counselor's order. And there's nobody that has studied couples and relationships that will tell a woman that makes $250,000 or more that when she gets married, she gets to keep all her money and do whatever she wants to do with it. And so that's why it's so important for a woman to marry a man that is secure, a man that is good with his money, a man that has his own vision, so he's not worried about it. Like, you all hear me joking about, my fake baby mama, her. And I always use, this particular artist because many of you know who she is. All right. And she tends to be a little bit more tame than a lot of the other artists out right now. But the point that I try to use with her and illustrate is that she makes millions upon millions of dollars a year. All right. So if me and her were to get married, there's no way at this point in my life that I would make even close to what she makes. But as soon as we get married, her money becomes my money. That is how that works. And no matter what women are out there saying, no matter how much they fight the fight, that is the reality. That is what the law says. That's even kind of what God leans into. And if we were to get a divorce a year after we got married, yes, she would have to pay me alimony, and I would probably walk away with half of her money. Now, this is not to say that that's what I would want to do. And more than likely with me, I would just walk away and just, let her have her money. But the point that I'm trying to make here is your money is not greater than your man. And for the men, their money is not greater than their woman. But a lot of men kind of understand this, but a lot of women, because they're kind of new to money, they're trying to understand it now. But the point to all of this is talking about traditional roles and what is it that people are really wanting out here. And when it comes down to it, people still lean into the traditional role no matter what the situation is. It just feels more comfortable to them. All right. And then that is what they've been advertised to their entire life. Now, Hallmark movies and different things like that are trying to change the narrative. And social media is constantly trying to change the narrative. Okay. But there's certain things that we all kind of lean toward. And see, men don't look at proposals and men don't look at women taking care of them the same way women look at a man proposing to them or taking care of them. It really doesn't compute in the same way. Because a man that is being taken care of, he kind of will, generally speaking, he'll kind of manipulate the situation a little bit more. And then you're also going to be dealing with men who generally have a lot more insecurities when it comes to that side of their life. Not saying all of them will, okay, but many of them will. And so that can lead to men in depression and all these other types of problems. There's just something about a man earning his own way that even men kind of lean into. When a woman comes in and proposes to a man, it is almost like she's stripping away part of his manhood. She is basically telling him at that particular point that I'm the man in this relationship and you're the woman. And I think that's why for a lot of men, it doesn't quite work. And it's almost like at that point, they just want to get out of the relationship. So what is a woman to do if she's been hanging out with a man for over a year, sometimes even 9 months or more, and the man doesn't seem like he is ever going to take her down the aisle? And the answer to that is simple. You need to move on. You need to leave him, and you need to find a better man. This is another reason why, people encourage abstinence. People encourage, if you just got to have sex, for you to limit it, use the rhythm method. If somebody does not understand what the rhythm method is, it's simple. When you are, as a woman, when you are the most excited, okay, that is generally when you are ovulating, okay? That is when you're fertile. So basically what you do is you put that on a calendar, okay? So you won't ever forget. And then every single month around that time, I know it's not exactly a month, so you're going to have to kind of predict for the future. You can always do 3 to 4 months out on your calendar, literally on your phone at a time. But you basically say, hey, girl, if you start to feel this over the next 4 days, okay, you are ovulating. And so during those times, you either tell your man no, or you put some protection on, or y'all do some kind of hybrid. Okay. But you basically don't allow the whole thing. And he's going to be more excited because you're going to be giving off pheromones during that time, and he is going to sense it. Okay. And so he's going to be more excited as well. And that's a way for you all to stay away from getting pregnant. Okay. And that way, when you walk away, you don't have to be feeling like, well, dang, I just had this kid and I really wanted to have this family. And see, these are types of things that a lot of people aren't thinking about. Okay. And again, I'm not encouraging people, to go out here and have sex. I'm always saying, try to abstain if you can. But the point here is simple. You cannot allow yourself to be put in a situation of vulnerability with a man that is not willing to put a ring on your finger. And somewhere between 9 months to 15 months, you need to be getting out of the relationship if the person is not willing to marry you. And remember, real quick, is that for a lot of women, a lot of men, if they feel pressure, they will marry you, but then they'll try to extend, the engagement period. And many of you have heard from me say this before. In fact, I was just saying it on a Zoom Live, that if I am basically, with a woman and I propose, generally, as soon as I propose, I could go to the courthouse the next day. Okay. And if your man does not have that energy where you feel like you could throw a wedding together within 2 to 3 months or less, and he's not willing to walk down the aisle at that point, and he's trying to push it out, why are we rushing? We could do this in a year and a half, blah, blah, blah. Then what he's trying to do is extend that engagement period to give himself more time. All right. And so, again, that's not a man that's serious about you. And that's why you have to look at all of the signs to see whether or not, he's going to do it. Because, see, many of you, I'm just being real, a lot of women are in placeholder positions, but they don't even know they're in placeholder positions. You think the man takes care of you. He buys you stuff. Every once in a while, y'all do some fun stuff. He's always talking to you about different things. But when it comes down to his future plans of life, he hasn't told you anything. Okay. And he's really not thinking about you as the wife. He's just thinking about you as the girlfriend. And I've talked about it before. Girlfriends are different than wives. And the men that are husband material, if you are wife material, they're going to wife you. Now, if a man is husband material and you're girlfriend material, he's going to girlfriend you. And if you are wife material, but you have talked to a man that is boyfriend material, the boyfriend is never going to wife you. All right. So of these three scenarios, 60% of the time, a woman can fail. However, if she wants marriage. However, remember, there's a lot of signs to let you know whether or not the man sees you that way and the fact that you can get out. Okay, so I wanted to make sure I did that so that people can actually find solutions because, I'm all about solutions. But the most important thing in this is simple. I just don't encourage women to ever propose, not in this day and age, maybe 30 years from now, maybe your daughters or your granddaughters will have that ability. But I don't really encourage that. And then once you get beyond that, I think you have to know where the man's heart is. And this is why I never encourage women to date average. Okay? You always date that average level and above, not center your dating around the average, which is what, like I say, most people out here are saying. But in order to do that, you yourself have to push yourself to the top. You can't be average and then want somebody that's above average. Okay, it doesn't work that way. You have to push yourself. And like I've said, for everybody is attractive. I just truly believe it. Okay, now we all have our own different version of attractiveness. I've talked about it. There's actually a video in the description that goes into depth. But the quick way to say it is simple. Some people like Rottweilers. Some people like Yorkies. These two dogs are totally different. They don't look different. They don't sound different. They act different, right? Everything about these two dogs is different. But that does not mean one is less than the other. And see, you might have not found people that find you attractive, and you might think, oh, this is the only person. But I guarantee you, somebody on this earth And more than likely, somebody in your city finds you attractive. Now, when I say city here, if you're in a city of 10,000, okay, I get it. But if you're in a city over a quarter mil, you'll probably have somebody that finds you very attractive, is willing to bend over backwards for you. And remember, even with style and things like that, you can always change someone's style. Okay, if they're open to, especially a lot of men really don't care that much about the way that they dress. So they really don't mind women coming in and kind of, quote unquote, cleaning them up, sprucing them up, getting the men to look a little bit more like what the woman wants. A lot of men really aren't going to fight you on that. Okay. And so that's why I'm always like, women in the past understood this, but the modern woman just doesn't understand this. The woman in the past understood you go after the man that has the good job, who will be nice to you, who is decently attractive, and then you fix him up. All right. They understood that. They understood finding the diamond in the rough. Like when you hear stuff like that, they understood that. Okay. The strong, silent type. They understood that because you've heard these terms, right? But the modern woman doesn't seem to understand it. It's like she wants the man fully put together when he gets to her, and where she doesn't have to do any work to build him. Okay. And I'm not saying build a bear, because the problem with build a bear mindset is you're building him towards his financial future. And it's nothing you can do about that. The core of the man has to be there. It has to be there. He has to have the vision. He has to be taking the train tracks down the road. That has to be 100% there. But what happens a lot of times is women are running into men that on the outside they look good, but the engine ain't started to move yet. And so they're believing, oh, he has this confidence to talk to me. He's this, that, and the third. And then they attach themselves to him. And then what ends up happening is the engine never moves. So after 2 or 3 years, they get frustrated. And now they've wasted time. And then 9 times out of 10, because the engine ain't moving, he ain't got nothing to do. So he just basically having sex with you all the time. And then now you end up pregnant. And then now when you find a man whose engine is moving down the train tracks, and then you try to get with him, he's like, nah, boo, you got too much baggage. I'm looking for another engine that rolls with me that don't have as much baggage. And so I'm trying to help you to get around that and to find people that are going to help you. Anyway, remember, in 2025, we will have Zoom Lives. And that is going to be on the first and third Thursday of every single month. We're also doing Pop the Balloon. We will do it in your area once we get enough people that sign up in your area. Again, that information is in the description. I've even put a FAQ out on the community tab so you guys can go check it out. There's nothing about that is about embarrassing anyone. It's all about trying to help you find your person. But if you're not willing to put in the time and the effort, I am trying to reach out. I'm trying to do this. It's not like I'm making any money off of doing it. So it's just, I'm hoping that you all see that I have a heart to try to find, help you find your person. Okay. Back in, Christian Singles Connect, which is the group, that I help to manage. We've had a couple of people, to get, married. We had a lady recently. She didn't marry anybody in the group, but she actually left, a message out there saying that, hey, thank you all for the group. It was helpful, through my single journey. I learned a lot, and now I'm married. So now I'm moving on. And again, for a lot of the people, both male and female, is giving you opportunities. And that's all that we're about. Okay. So I think that you need to really consider that, okay, as you move forward. All right. So anyway, until then, please like, please subscribe, and I'm going to see you all in the very next video.